Hi everyone, I'm Mack, and welcome to another episode of The Vulnerable Hero, where I define vulnerability as the courage to experience love in its purest form. Today, I want to talk about breaking the cycle. Breaking any cycle that you find yourself repeating, not just in your life, from your life, as the origin of the cycle. I mean breaking the cycle of generational patterns. What patterns are you experiencing that you were raised with, that your parents were raised with, and so on and so forth, all the way back up as high as you can go in the family tree? What patterns do you struggle with that you know must be broken? Is it how you parent? Is it how you speak to your spouse? Is it how you treat your body? Is it what type of food you eat? Is it the media you consume? Is it the way you think about the world? What is it? Is it politics? Is it religion? Is it philosophy? What patterns are you perpetuating that you know deep down don't cause peace in your life? I was talking to a buddy who stayed in town this past weekend, and we were talking about breaking cycles. And I told him a story that really impacted me. I don't even know if impact's the right word. It healed a part of me when I was dealing with my son. So I have a 4.5-year-old son, and he is a sweet, sweet, sweet boy. And one day he was like rustling and showing me his muscles, and he's like, "Look, Dad, look how big my muscles are." And I looked at him, and I've never thought this before. I never have ever even heard this before. But I looked at him and I said, "Colin, I know you're tough. You never have to prove to me how tough you are, because I know you're tough." And when I said that to him, I almost started crying because I was really saying it to myself. It was an unusual moment to speak into the life of my son and yet receive the healing and love in my own heart from giving to him. And right there, a cycle was broken of having to prove how tough one is and grind it out. It was broken. Now my son forever will know you don't have to prove how tough you are. I know you're tough. What cycles in your life can you break? And what are holding you back from receiving the fullness of love and freedom and healing? Most often we don't have someone to bounce perspectives off of us, because usually we, the adage, birds of a feather flock together, which is good. And yet, when we don't get multiple perspectives, it's very difficult to calibrate my alignment to health and what is the best for my life. What is the best for your life? So it's important that we get perspective from others. That's why this podcast, I in the first episode of this podcast said it's the third space. It's not home. It's not work. It's the third space. It's the place I want you to develop some thoughts and ideas, and we can dialogue. And I've heard from many of you. We can discuss these concepts. Well, today's concept is, what cycles do you need to break? There is a term in the Bible that, there's a term that people use from the text in the Bible. And the words are, during the 10 Commandments, when God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, in Judaism, they're called the 10 utterances, but most commonly the vernacular is the 10 Commandments. It says, God says, "I will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the third and fourth generation of those that hate me." He says, "I will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the third and fourth generation of those that hate me, but I will show mercy to thousands of those that love me." What does that mean? Well, iniquity is impurity. It's like if you took a pure glass of water and you are so thirsty, and let's say this, you are really thirsty, and I took a pure glass of water and I presented it to you, and right before I gave it to you, I put a little, let's just take it all the way. I put a little drop of urine in that. Now stay with me, hang with me. It would still be the same water prior to me putting that urine in the water. It's just the same amount. It was as pure as it could be, but all of a sudden impurity came into that. And that impurity starts to touch all aspects of that water. That's what iniquity is. When we don't clean out what's inside of us, when we don't heal, when we don't face the pain, the trauma, the shame, when we don't deal with that which is internal, it is like that urine that goes inside of us and it just touches every aspect of our lives. And then when we have kids, we pass that impurity on. That's what iniquity is. It's impurity. So in the context of the 10 Commandments, what God is saying there is, I will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the third and fourth generation. It takes usually 3 to 4 generations to get that initial iniquity out. So that's why alcoholism continues in families, child abuse continues in families, domestic abuse continues in families, because it's going through the generations. Those are cycles. What if it's self-deprecation, beat up, lack of worthiness? We're told you're no good. You were told you're no good. Your parents were told they were no good, and so on and so forth. We together right now get to break the cycles that hold us back. A couple episodes I said, are your badges of honor actually your shackles of shame? Are your badges of honor actually your shackles of shame? Because you made it through, you justify how you are, but you really know you're not free. And when I say free, I said this to someone yesterday. I was talking about vulnerability. If you and I, if we are not able to discuss all things, I mean all things that are inside of us, all things that we think, all things that we believe, all things that we've gone through, all things that we want to do, all things external, politics, religion, philosophy, you name it, economics. If you're not able to freely discuss all things and discuss with others ideas and bounce ideas off others without getting triggered, then you're not free. The anger, the trigger, when someone says something to you and you get triggered, that is just an indication. It's feedback for you, not them. It's feedback for you that there's something within you still needing to be healed. Maybe it's that you're unwilling to admit you don't know really the argument that you're putting out into the world or you live with or your beliefs. And I've talked about this before as well, and I think it's important to bring up again. I was talking to a buddy last night. If everything that I believed was true, every belief that I hold, if I believed it was absolute truth, and every belief is a grain of sand, and it's contained within me in a giant sandbag, and every belief that you believe to be true is a grain of sand, and all your beliefs are contained in a giant sandbag inside you. If we all, every person on planet Earth, tore open the sandbag, threw the sand on an infinite plane so every grain is equally laid out flat, what grains of sand would I keep after looking at all the grains and pick back up that I still believe are true? And what new grains of sand would I pick up from another that I find to be true? For who can say everything that we believe is all that there is to believe? And why I bring this up is when we get triggered, when we get angry, when someone, a Democrat, Republican argument in politics, or a religious argument, or a philosophical argument, or an economic argument, or wherever arguments arise, really, I believe it is an indication of both parties or a party not fully believing what they believe is true, or they're not sure if it's true. So it only triggers the insecurity of one. It has nothing to do with the other party that triggers you. So to be free, to break that cycle, you get to go inward and look and be vulnerable, because vulnerability is the courage to experience love in its purest form. And what I mean love is the natural state of the universe. When you hear someone say, I was in the flow, or you just feel like you're in that pocket, you are, because you're not insecure, you don't have your walls up, you don't have your guard up, you are just simply being, and you are experiencing all that is in the natural order, which is love. In Christianity, in their New Testament, John 3:16 is a verse that a lot of people quote. What is that? It says, for God so loved the world. For God so loved the world. And also in 1 John, it says God is love. So God, who is love, loves what he created. That's why I've said previously, love loves love. Because all things were made in and by love. So that's the natural state. So when you have the courage to experience love, all that is good, all that is natural, all the order of the universe, you can go anywhere. And that ability to go anywhere allows love to heal you. I realize I just went a little esoteric. I realize I went a little outside the confines of the practical nature of talking from one person to another and the arguments. But I really want you to understand there's way more at play than just getting angry over an argument. And there's way more access to healing when we are able to be vulnerable, break the cycles, and simply explore all things. All things. What is there to be afraid of when you know love has your back and front and top and bottom? Our society right now, humanity as a whole, we can either go really one of two ways. We can allow fear to continue to control us, and fear's byproducts are hate and rage and violence and attacks, verbal, physical, emotional, psychological. Byproducts of fear are divisions and continuing cycles that hold us back. Or we can go down the route of love and understanding for the very first time what true love is. True love always gives. It's sad that we even have to define what love is again, and yet here we are, 2019, needing to define what real love is. Love makes you free. I was talking to another buddy the other day, and he said, I'm really praying for God's will to show me, praying God would show me this decision he was trying to make, if it's the right decision. And I said, well, do you feel love? Do you feel more love? Do you feel peace? Do you feel long suffering? Do you feel goodness? Do you feel gentleness, faith, temperance, meekness? Do you feel these things? Are you feeling more joy, more peace, more freedom, more goodness in your life from debating and praying, God, show me the way? I said, no. I said, then you already know. It's not the way. You don't need to pray and have someone show you. You are your own thermometer. You don't have to look outside to see what your temperature is. You get to check your own temperature. And if you're not free, if you struggle with your thoughts, with your emotions, with your urges, with your tendencies, with your default modalities, it's just an indication that there's a lack of freedom. And the lack of freedom is an indication that there's a lack of truth. And the lack of truth is an indication that you feel judged and you feel shame in some area. So when you're vulnerable and you drop your walls and you look at it straight in the eye, you can go and process that which holds you back and bring the truth to light so that you may be healed. And this is how we break the cycles. This is how you stop your base self, your lower self, your human nature from overriding your higher self, your best self, the self that you really want to be, the self that you know deep down, if I could only get over these certain things, I would be better. If I only made more money, if I only had a different job, if I only had external things, I would be. And the reality is, you get to be so that you can have those things, not have those things so you can finally be at peace. And how do you finally be at peace so that you can have what you truly want? It's by looking square in the eyes the truth. And the truth, no matter how ugly and dirty it is, when it comes out and when it comes to the light, healing takes place. Your freedom takes place. This is what our world needs right now. We're tired of politicians hiding and lying to us. We're tired of the religious leadership, professing perfection and preaching perfection only to find that they themselves are some of the furthest from it. No, what we need right now is vulnerability, truth, love, healing. And if you have to cry, this is something I just want to share right now. I'm not sure when the last time is that you cried. There's a lot more men that listen to this podcast than women. But regardless of your gender, when was the last time you cried? And I mean, let it rip. I believe tears are the ointment of the soul. I believe tears are the ointment of the soul. Your soul, which longs to be free, which longs to be healed, which longs to be access to its fullest. The healing comes first and foremost when you have tears. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. So, cry. Let it out. Because the more you pour out, like that cup, getting back to the glass of water, if there is impurity in there, pour it out. Cry it out. Get it out of you. Get out of you that which is inside you that is keeping you held back. Because the more room you pour out, the more room you create to receive. And if you want to pour out this much, you'll be filled this much. If you want to pour out a little bit more, you'll be filled a little bit more. But you get to be filled fully as you pour out fully. And this is how the cycles are broken. Thank you for listening today. I went on some tangents. But to summarize, I want your freedom. I want you to experience love, the love that is fully accessible for you, so that you can be healed, so that you can go out and heal another. For my mission is to see hurting people get healed and healed people go out and heal the world. This is possible because we are the vulnerable heroes that can face anything and stand in the power of vulnerability. Thank you for listening today. I'm honored. This podcast is something that I hope touches you. I hope you share it. I would appreciate if you go on iTunes, rate it, write a comment, and help spread the word so that other people can be free. One of the ways that I am stepping forward and helping specifically men become free and men to learn how to heal themselves through the power of vulnerability are the men's retreats, the Vulnerable Hero Retreat and Legacy Experience that I'm putting on. I have 2 weekends, a 90-day program, 2 different times this year. The dates are on my website at lucasmack.com/retreats. If you're interested, fill out the application. This is a time where not only you learn to heal yourself and to become free, but also define everyone that comes to this will have a tangible, clear path forward on how to rewrite their future and how to create the legacy that they truly deep down want to leave. We get to do this together. So if you're interested in that, go to my website. Thank you for listening today. As always, it is a pleasure. My name is Lucas Mack, and I'll talk to you on the next episode.